What if you could get two realtors for the price of one? When I noticed Alicia and Cecilia were co-listing a property, I thought I'd like to learn what that is all about and share those learnings with you, the listener. Alicia Hegarty, who was in my pre-licensing course, is a realtor with the Anthony Delodder team at Royal LePage. Prior to her moving into this line of work, she had years of experience working with contractors as she and her husband invested in multiple homes. She spent 10 years working in family service, which lends itself very well to helping people in the midst of one of the most important financial and life decisions they will ever experience: the purchase and sale of a house. Cecilia Williams is a realtor with Northern Lights Realty. She moved to the island from Ontario in late 2015, where she worked in hospitality and agriculture. She has an honors degree in bioresource management from the University of Guelph and currently lives in Charlottetown with her 6-year-old daughter. She sits on the board of directors as Director of Communications and Secretary for Fusion Charlottetown, a local nonprofit. She's been in the business for the last 4.5 years and brings experience working with many sellers and buyers. She has her own YouTube channel and has one of the top 10 realtor Instagram accounts on PEI, which you can find by searching PEI Pro Realtor or following the link in the description. But first, you're listening to Chattel Fixtures PEI Real Estate Podcast. I'm your host, David Cyrus MacDonald, a realtor with RE/MAX Charlottetown. If you want to stay in the know about real estate on PEI, then make sure you subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell. If you're listening on another podcast platform, please follow or subscribe there. And if you want to take it up a notch, leave us a review or a comment. Let's get into this. Welcome, Alicia and Cecilia.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. So I've been following the journey of this co-listing that you have. I have no idea how the business model works, but I've got to admit, it looks like it's been a lot of fun. The two of you seem to have a lot of laughs putting together your social media and marketing for the property. For example, you would think TikToks were easy posts, was pretty fun. Can you talk a little bit about how this came together and maybe talk a bit about the collaboration process so far?
Yeah, so the sellers of our Route 1 listing reached out to me to interview me and a couple of other real estate agents late last year. They ended up choosing me, and we put together a 3 to 6 month plan to get their home ready to list, potentially in the spring market. Within that 3 to 6 months, Alicia got her real estate license, and she knew the sellers. They came to me and asked if there was a way that they could support Alicia's new career, and I threw out a co-list.
Cool.
We kind of discussed that with the sellers and Alicia, and she went to her brokerage. I actually did not go to mine. So I will preface and say that if you are planning on doing a co-list, if you're another agent, definitely run it by your broker first.
But yeah, I was going to ask about that because it is with two different brokerages. So
yes, it is.
Kind of interesting.
I, with my brokerage, have the ability to add and edit my own listings. So it wasn't something that I had to put through an admin or anything like that. Yeah. Once we got the okay, I just put it up. So it's been a bit of a learning curve in terms of the logistics on marketing through two different brokerages, but it's been amazing so far.
Yeah, I've really enjoyed co-listing with Cecilia. She's an absolute doll. We sat down and met originally. Her expertise is one of the best, I would say. And I just, I think I kind of love co-listing now.
Yeah.
I don't know if I wanted any other way.
Oh, that's cool. That's nice.
And, considering coming from a different brokerage, I did really appreciate, the way that she treated me as a new agent. She was very gracious and patient and kind with me, and really showed me a lot of the ropes. And we really had a lot of fun, especially marketing together and doing those videos together.
Yeah. That video is so embarrassing.
Well, there's definitely, just the combination of you two, it feels to me anyway, and maybe because being in the same realty course as you, I was already following you on social media. Yeah. So with the two of you doing it, it was like, oh, this is entertaining. It's kind of fun. I definitely was aware of the listing, and I think I was looking at one of your other listings, and you told me about the listing as well. And I think I got information from both of you. It's kind of cool though, that listing. It has a rental component, which is kind of neat.
You got it.
I love that.
Yeah, like there's that income potential, which is neat. But so I mean, you kind of answered in a way, but why do a co-listing? So maybe even if it wasn't a situation where, this particular one, as you outlined, why would someone maybe want to do a co-listing?
I think it brings awareness. So if a client hires Cecilia and I to do the work, then they're getting a bonus 2-for-1 deal, really.
Yeah.
They're getting her social media, my marketing tools, her marketing tools. So really getting double the service, but in one fee.
Yeah.
Yeah, in this particular example, Alicia's from the island, born and raised, and I'm not. So my network draws on Canada-wide and especially Ontario-based, and Alicia has a big network as well. So you're getting access to not only the big Royal LePage network and a boutique brokerage where my marketing is a little bit more tailor-made to each property. So it's a great mix of local and cross-Canada networking.
Cool. Yeah. Yeah, that's neat. And I mean, the benefit to the seller is sort of obvious there, right? You get more exposure for your property, more potential people looking at it to potentially buy it, right? So yeah, anything else you want to elaborate on the benefit to the seller? Or, I mean, that's the main thing, right?
Yeah, really, two heads is better than one, in my opinion. We work really well together. You have an extra set of hands when you need it. There's more availability in a schedule for showings and social media marketing and property exposure. So it's been great, and we can lean on each other when needed for open houses and things like that. It's more hours available when you have two people working on a property.
Oh, nice. That's awesome.
Yeah, there has been situations where Cecilia wasn't able to make the open house, and so I was able to step in, right? Whereas it would have went like there would have been no open house that weekend because she was working on another one. So that is the benefit. Like we really can tag team.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
oh, that's awesome. So I think both of you is very kind of new school in your approach as compared to some realtors that I follow. And you both seem really successful with your social media marketing. And it's cool to see the audience you've been building. I still have some more old school realtors question the value of social media marketing. Can you tell me a little bit more about why you do it and how it can benefit your clients?
I really believe in the power of social media. Actually, when I launched, my first lead was through Instagram. And I think the more you put out there, the more the people get to know you as a person, the more they feel they trust you, they know you, and they want to go to you first before they go to somebody else that they may not feel like they know. And I think it brings just awareness, constant awareness to what you're doing and everything about you and what you're about. Not even just business-wise, but as a person. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a way to stay top of mind in a way that's not pushy and salesy. When I started my career in my Instagram, I really wanted to do what's called an attraction-based model. So I wanted people to come to me when they were ready to transact. I wanted to be somebody that they felt they could approach and interview for a real estate agent. I don't want to knock the old school ways of real estate because I think that there is definitely a time and a place for cold calling and door knocking. But if I spend an hour door knocking and nobody answers the door or nothing comes out of it, like that hour is gone. But if I spend an hour putting out a video on ways to get your home ready for listing, that video is watched for years to come. And that may lead to 10 or more listings.
Right.
Whereas an hour of door knocking may not get you anywhere. So
Right. Yeah.
definitely a time and a place for both, old school and new school tactics. But personally, I've found success with the newer way of thinking about promoting yourself and your business.
And it's so fun. It's so fun. It's such a fun way to market.
It is, for sure.
Yeah, totally. So what is the value of good marketing? Because this is another one that I get sometimes from old school people where it's like, okay, you put it on the MLS, you price it right, and that's your market. And I don't necessarily buy into that, but maybe if you want to discuss a little bit the value of good marketing, maybe for a listing and for the benefit of the person selling.
So first of all, Realtor.ca is amazing. It's a fantastic tool to search for your next home, but you have to go there. Whereas social media, people spend hours a day on social media, not for any reason in particular, but they learn things from social media. They follow new people. It's very organic, and it's a way to highlight features of the property that Realtor.ca doesn't. So, for example, are things we love about Route 1. Like, that's not something that you can tailor on Realtor.ca. You know, you are limited in the property description as to how you highlight the property. As well, video is kind of awkward on Realtor.ca. You have to prompt people how to get there, whereas social media, it's very easy to share videos and highlight features of a property.
I think the biggest thing, or the biggest value I get, is to be yourself ultimately, like on social media. I do think that, like Cecilia said, people are watching you, your organic growth, your organic self. And then you can highlight, just as she said, so many different aspects of the property and so many different ways. You can be so creative. And so maybe somebody didn't see it on realtor.ca, but then you throw out a reel. And maybe like lots of people didn't see that. And then you throw out a post and you continue with it. And so on and so forth until hopefully you find a buyer. But yeah, buyers are everywhere and you only need one. So
totally. I mean, what are some things a realtor can do to help get a property sold for the best price and as quickly as possible?
So I will typically either suggest or just myself paint touch-ups. Outdoor curb appeal is a really big one for me. I'm fairly hands-on with my listings.
She very much is.
I take a full service approach to the listings that I do. And I don't know.
Do you have any examples of that? Like, would you go to the house multiple times, helping them get it ready, checking in with them?
Oh yeah.
She's painting. We were
Oh,
painting.
Yeah? You were painting
and cleaning the house.
Every listing, usually I'll paint.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So how much time would you go in spending painting one of your listings?
It depends. Like, I mean, I'm not repainting a whole room. There's only one of me. I can't do that. But yeah, putty, touch-ups. If the seller has the paint available, I go in and putty and touch up. And there's a fine line because, you know, being a real estate agent, you need a strong moral compass and you can't go in and hide, you know, defects of a property or water damage or things like that. But you can certainly, there are things that you can do that just kind of puts the property's best face forward. And I firmly believe that is time worth spending. And I think that that's a huge value add to sellers.
Oh, that's really cool. That's neat. I don't think I think Greg Rivard once was telling me about one time he went in and did a deep clean for this client. But other than that you're the first person I've told, who I've heard as a realtor who will go in and actually do some real physical labor helping get it ready.
Oh yeah, like I got somebody's shed cleaned out a couple of weeks ago. I think I posted that one on social media.
Nice.
Yeah, I offer every seller to take loads to the dump if they need to.
Oh, okay.
Paint touch-ups, cleaning. I pay for a cleaning for all my listings because I want the property's best foot forward. And it's important that if you're going to spend the money on, as a realtor, sellers don't spend this money, but as a realtor, if you're going to spend the money on photos and videos and drone and et cetera, then you really want to capture the property's best features and not be distracted by paint chips or messy, anything like that.
Yeah.
And to be honest, what I learned from that was the value of honestly getting to know the client better too. We really bonded over cleaning and chatting, and we really had a good time.
Right.
So it was really, really nice, actually.
Right.
Yeah.
And I mean, especially when you look at the seller's perspective, there's such an emotional attachment to the home usually, especially if it's owner occupied.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And so, I mean, just like all the letting go involved in a move. And then even if you're painting or you're putting away boxes and that dump load where it's like there might be some stuff with sentimental value in that dump load. So that emotional journey that sellers are going through, it's a very different experience from a buyer to a seller in that particular way. There's an emotional component to the buyer too, but it's more about, okay, I'm making this huge financial decision and where am I moving and how does this affect school zones for my kids? Or there's a lot of that and where they're moving from. But for the seller, it's very acute because it's the physical thing that you're selling. There is often this emotional connection too.
100%.
Yeah,
So to
very
actually
different
go in
emotions.
there and be a part of that journey and to help make that as easy and as smooth as possible, the value of that seems obvious.
It's been well received. For
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah, totally. And I mean, and I think this is one of the things that I'd like to kind of highlight too for the audience is sometimes I get the impression from certain people that I talk to that they think, oh, every realtor is the same. And
No,
no,
they are not.
They are not the same. And yeah, there was a person I was talking to the other day who I handed a piece of marketing material to. And I was like, I just sold the place right around the corner. And I was just talking to some neighbors. I was actually doing a little door knocking. And and he's like, oh, I get flyers in the mail from realtors. I'm good. It's like, we're not all the same.
Yeah.
We're not all the same.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's so many different approaches too. And I'm not saying necessarily that people who aren't doing that hands-on work would be amazing realtors who are not doing that hands-on work.
Absolutely.
But it's just to highlight the differences there. Yeah, that's really neat.
And it's nice to have that freedom, right? Like to be who you are in this game of real estate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To do what you think is best and have your own approach and to gain your own clientele that like you and you like them, and everybody's different and it's great.
Yeah, absolutely. Like building that trust with the people. Also, I mean, that is such a huge component of this trust. And the person who's selling it, they don't want to just know that you're the best person for them. They want to trust that you're just going to do a solid job and that they're safe.
Yeah,
Yes.
they're in good hands.
That they're in good hands, and there's not, something kind of, because I mean, let's be honest, most people, they are experts on their home, but people have other careers. They don't necessarily have time to learn all the ins and outs of selling a property. So they want to know that whoever they're talking to has got their back and is good and is trustworthy and is knowledgeable. And yeah, so experience and trust, like that's pretty
so important in our industry.
Yeah.
Consistency as a real estate agent so that people know what they can expect when they hire you. It's really important to me that I approach every listing, even though I tailor the marketing a little bit. If it's a listing near a golf course, then I'm going to highlight, I'm going to target people that like golf with my marketing. But at the end of the day, like you're going to get the same amount of hours out of me in and out of your house for the marketing. You know that I'm going to be doing open houses. You know that I'm going to be doing a lot of social media marketing and things like that. And sellers that hire me, just they know what I'm doing already because I've made it clear to them and they've watched me do it with all of my other listings.
So do you have like a package or something you give to people when you're getting started? Like, here, this is walking you through the process.
Yeah, I make it very clear what sellers and buyers can expect when they work with me. And I think that's really important as an agent. You need to present yourself and market yourself just like you do these listings honestly and consistently is really important.
Yeah, well, maybe just a question for both of you. What made you want to be a realtor?
So I strongly believe in the benefits of homeownership, not only from a mental health and a stability perspective, but also equity building. I think that owning real estate is the best way to build yourself equity. It's the easiest way to do it on your own time with minimal money involved. I mean, I know you have to pay for your mortgage and stuff, but like you would be paying rent as well, typically unless you're with your parents. Housing costs money. So to be able to build equity and grow your net worth with the roof over your head is amazing. And I firmly believe that as many people should own a home as possible for that reason.
Yeah, no, I absolutely second that. I also just love people and love looking at houses.
Right. Yeah.
So that's the simple answer.
Yeah. There's a kid. Do you know Ryan Serhant? Ryan Serhant.
No.
He's a guy from $1 Million Listing New York.
Oh yeah.
And he's this really charming guy.
Yeah.
And one of his things that he says that he thinks of especially when he's working with buyers, he just thinks of it as shopping with friends.
House
Very
shopping.
true.
Let's go.
Yeah. Yeah. So that whole experience is like, that's fun.
Yeah, fun,
Yeah.
enjoyable. Obviously, there's going to be bumps in the road, like there always is with houses and real estate. But yeah, if you can bring the fun, bring the joy, bring the expertise there, and carry them along the way to the journey of home, then yeah.
Yeah. One of the things you're talking about, kind of attraction based selling, where it's like inbound versus outbound selling and that kind of thing. Um, there's a certain moments in this job where you can tell what the person wants and you can have an idea of what is going to get them that outcome, but they may not have come around to that decision yet. And that is something that I struggle with a little bit. I've had some buyers who are like, oh yeah, this is the one we want. We're so ready for this, right? And you see it and you're like, okay, this one is priced right. It should probably sell pretty quickly. And I'll say something like, okay, this is priced right. It should sell pretty quickly. If you want to put in an offer, now is probably the time because they don't have an offer on it right now. And sometimes, but you want to match I don't want to pressure people either, right? So, but then I've had several buyers who after that little talk, they wait a few days and then, okay, I reach back out to the realtor and the selling agent and they're like, okay, it is now conditionally sold. And it's like, okay, well, talk to my clients again. It's like, okay, well, we put in a backup offer. What are we going to do? And the position just got a lot worse, right? And so how do you, and this, you can either of you can answer this, how do you deal with that? Because you don't want to put pressure on your clients. You ultimately want them to make the best decision. But if you see kind of what they want, but they're not quite there yet, like, how do you protect your client from that? Like, how do you deal with that situation?
So yeah, that happens a lot, and it happens on the seller and the buyer side. So my best advice is to trust your realtor. Because I will draw on past experiences. I will lay those experiences out, and I'll just give my buyers kind of like, or my sellers, I'll say like, okay, if we go this route, I think this is what's going to happen. Whereas if we go this route, I think this is what's going to happen. Ultimately, at the end of the day, as a real estate agent, you work for your buyers and your sellers. So they do have the final say in how you proceed. But your job is to provide expertise to them and to hopefully guide them on the path that you think and they think is the right one. And so it's a lot of taking the time to have those conversations and to draw on your previous experiences as a realtor and how those previous experiences can help your current buyers and sellers. And, of course, there's no crystal ball involved in real estate. I can't guarantee what I think is going to happen, but I can, again, draw on those previous experiences and the current market statistics and market climate and suggest my best foot forward. But at the end of the day, sometimes you do just have to let buyers or sellers learn the hard way once or twice. And it sucks to go through. There's a lot of emotions involved.
Yeah, especially when people get a little attached to the one that they were hoping for and then it's gone. I mean, it happens it is just part of it. And usually, you keep waiting and maybe you see something that's even better. But yeah, it is. It's good to get your perspective on that. Alicia, do you have any thoughts on that? Kind of dealing with people with that, when you have an idea of how you think would be good to proceed, but they're not necessarily there yet.
I kind of had the opposite situation that you had. I had a client that went in, seen the house, didn't really love it. We chit-chatted for a little bit. I called the realtor. The realtor wanted some offers to come through like in an hour or so. And then she said, okay, let's put in an offer. And I was like, not convinced that she really loved it. But I said, okay, like, are you sure? Yep. And so we started doing up the offer and I'm like, is there anybody you want to call or like check in with? And as we were going through it, she did ultimately say, you know what? I don't think I'm ready. And I was so glad that she came to that. I was like, I didn't think you were ready, but it's ultimately up to them, of course.
Yeah.
But I certainly don't want my clients getting into something that they're not ready for. And I'm never going to push or steer them in that direction. If I'm feeling like, are you really sure? Like,
Yeah.
because that's a big deal.
Oh, totally.
Yeah. So that was the experience I had.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think, on either side of those equations, it's, there can be a lot of emotion involved and fear of loss.
Yeah.
Yeah. And,
Yeah.
and patience can go a long way, but sometimes it can,
And this
miss out on
person,
an opportunity too.
she was looking at a lot of properties for a long period of time. And I think it almost came down to the pressure of the timing, right? Like the offers have to
Didn't
be
want to
in.
miss another one.
Miss another one. Yeah. That's in that price range too, right? So I totally get it. But I'm glad we kind of took our time with it. And throughout, she did ultimately say, you know what? I don't think it's for me.
Yeah.
I'm like, we're going to find the house for you. Don't you worry.
Yeah. And you will.
Yeah.
You will. Yeah. Yeah. That's great.
I really believe that what is meant to be will be. And sometimes good things fall apart so that better things can come together. And as a real estate agent, some of the best advice that I was given from a previous broker was like, it could be like you have your last dollar in your bank account and you really need this deal to come together. But you have to just train yourself out of that mentality as a real estate agent, because even a short-term gain for the wrong deal coming together and closing and the money involved in that, it's not going to lead to a successful long-term business for you as a real estate agent. So it really is important to make sure as an agent that your client's best interests, are guiding everything that you do. Of course, that's in our code of conduct, and everybody says that, but you have to live that mentality, I think, to be a successful agent.
I love that. You have to live that.
Yeah.
You're going to live that.
You gotta
Own
live
that.
You do have to live it. Yeah. No, it's true. And everybody has their biases and everybody has their own, factors that are influencing the decisions they're making. So, but you have a fiduciary duty to your client. That's one of the rules. And so, and I like to think that most of the time people are being handled well in this industry. You can imagine situations where maybe not, though. Yeah.
Yeah, I think realtors have a bad rep, unfortunately. And, sometimes a couple of bad apples ruin the bunch in terms of like the eyes of the public or a particular buyer or seller. And that's, again, another reason why I think as an agent and just as someone who owns a business, you need to make sure that you're putting your most ethical and best foot forward in the way that you treat people. Because, when this deal is done and you've cashed your check and you move on, they don't. This is their home, or it's a property that they own, and they are responsible for maintaining it. And it has to be the right fit for them, for your business to grow from referrals and word of mouth in the way that we want to happen.
Yeah. And when I look at a lot of the absolute top sellers on PEI, these are people that have very solid reputation. If you look at Chris and Catherine Fournier, or you look at Kendra Stretch, these are people that have built a reputation based on their behavior and what they've done for clients through the years. And that's ultimately, they are the most successful in the business, I believe. So it is in realtors' best interest, I believe, to really live by that. And sometimes you may miss out on a deal because you're doing the right thing, and that is the better.
A lot.
That is not only the better decision for the person; it's just a better life decision, and it's a better career decision as well if you're playing the long game.
Absolutely, yeah.
What do you think will happen with interest rates? What do you see happening?
So we were very happy to see yesterday that the Bank of Canada did not raise the rate at all. Obviously, it's dependent on how the economy performs, and there's certain metrics that they follow. Just from a real estate market perspective, we've seen a big shift in the market from, mid 2022 to now, and whether that's solely interest rates or whether the foreign buyer ban played a part in that as well. But I think that the market took a hit for sure when interest rates rose. And so ideally, I think that they will plateau for 2023 and then either, slightly increase or slightly decrease depending on how the economy performs. I think if the economy performs well, then we will maybe see rates go up a little bit more.
Yeah.
unfortunately. But I think that we're seeing signs now that buying and selling has picked up a little bit, and these new normal rates people are adjusting to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I mean, if you look at the last 10 years, they're high. If you look at the last 30 years average debt or something, they're pretty normal.
Yeah, they're
Right.
right on par.
Yeah. So what about you, Alicia? Do you have any guesses on where interest rates are going? Any instinct on
I
it?
feel like they're gonna lower a little bit.
Yeah.
I hope so.
That's your gut feeling?
Yeah, that's just my gut feeling. Yeah.
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 I'm hoping. I'm really hoping.
Yeah.
Even a little bit, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a big expense. I mean, if you look at the difference between 2% and 6%, this is I think when Steve Barber was on the podcast, he mentioned this, and it's $500,000 house. If it's 2%, the interest is $10,000 annually. If it's 6%, the interest is $30,000 annually.
Right.
I mean, not $500,000 house, $500,000 mortgage.
Yeah.
But still, that's a really meaningful difference for people in their lives, and what kind of decisions and sacrifices people might have to make to do that. So and it is, I mean, the whole interest rate thing, and it being mainly being related to inflation and inflation fears, and the cost of goods going up. You can see why. I mean, I'd rather a situation where the interest rates are a bit higher and people can go to the grocery store and get food if that's the situation.
Right.
And you don't want runaway inflation.
No.
Not to spin it overly positively, but generally speaking, inflation, if you do own property, inflation is the position to be in, because if the money's worth less, the owning is the position to be in, because if the mortgage is worth less, each dollar is worth less, the mortgage is worth less. But assuming the value of the property goes up with that inflation, then your equity goes up. So it is advantageous in my opinion, in a high inflation environment to own assets like real estate. But however, if interest rates are going up, then that helps balance that out to make sure that things don't go out of control. Yeah. Maybe I'll just say, just for fun, just because we've each taken a turn to saying interest rates, I kind of agree that I think things will sort of level off around here for the next little bit. And then my guess still is that they will pull back a little bit. But it's a guess. That's anybody's guess. I wouldn't be surprised if they go up slightly either, but yeah, it really depends, like you said, how the economy performs. Yeah, and it's very hard. And also unknown things. I think right now, for me, global macro, there's no big boat stuck in a canal right now. There's
no pandemic
no,
that we're
yeah.
smack in the middle of.
Yeah, exactly. And no new war that I'm aware of anyway. And maybe I haven't been keeping up on it, but there is. But we've learned, I think, over the last few years that anything can happen. And the things we assume are going to go a certain way, we realize now, okay, we can't just assume things are going to go a certain way. So I think you want to kind of prepare for the worst, but expect the best, I think.
Yeah, exactly. No, it's a weird geopolitical climate right now. And I think the last couple of years or few years have kind of shown that anything can happen. And, things on Prince Edward Island are heavily impacted by things that are happening across the world. And so it's important to set yourself up in a financial situation and home ownership potentially that you can ride these changes, interest rate changes. So whether that's not buying at the top of your pre-approval budget, or whether that's putting your money into real estate so that you are better protected from inflation, things that are happening around the world impact PEI buyers and sellers. So to be aware of those and to have windfalls or safeguards in place to protect against either higher or lower inflation, or gas prices or heating oil prices, for example, whatever it may be. It's kind of important to set yourself up so that you are flexible if these things change.
What do you think right now, fixed or variable interest rate, if a client forced you to decide for them?
Depends on their financial situation,
And term,
really.
how long a
Yeah.
term?
I would go lower on the term right
Okay.
now,
Yeah.
personally.
Like 3 year?
3 year, yeah.
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 I'd go variable.
You'd go variable right now?
Take the risk.
I would, yeah.
Mhm.
I probably would as well.
Yeah, 'cause
Mhm.
if it goes down, then you're benefiting.
Yeah, and it does
Yeah.
seem like the time to go variable is when the interest rates are higher than you expect them to
Yes.
be in the future,
Yeah.
as opposed to when they're at rock bottom.
Yeah.
Yeah. Although variable performed very well for the last long time.
Yeah.
Even when things were low and we thought, well, maybe they won't go lower, and then they did.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
No, I don't think we'll
Yeah.
see those 1.99s anytime soon.
Yeah, I kind of hopefully not, because like, what are the conditions in the world if that's happening?
Yeah, I don't
again,
want another
right?
pandemic.
Yeah, same.
No, thanks.
Yeah. What investments can a homeowner put into their property to get the best return? You think?
So for me, paint, curb appeal is a huge one for me. I think a lot of people really focus on the inside of their home and they kind of forget about the outside. And that's really where your first impression is. And then just cleaning to like maybe getting somebody to come and pressure wash your home, like first appearances. And
Oh, pressure wash.
yeah,
Nice.
that's an awesome one. Just to kind of clean things up. And landscaping is a great way to, an affordable way to present your home in a really attractive way.
Staging is an option too. They have virtual staging.
Yeah.
Well, we have virtual staging now.
Mhm.
That's a good option. But everything really that she said, right? And it doesn't normally, it's not a big investment to kind of, make your house show ready.
No, you don't have to redo your kitchen. And honestly,
No.
half the time you don't get the return on your investment if you redo your kitchen,
Right.
Especially the way that labor prices and material prices have skyrocketed the last year. It's these smaller, more affordable renos or refresh options that are really making a big impact when you go to list.
Like we're getting a house ready to list, and the walls were all brown.
Oh.
And so we said, okay, let's do white. And we came in the other day, actually just yesterday, and the walls are beautifully painted white. And what a difference.
Yeah.
It's so bright and
Yeah.
airy and,
Yeah, I'm
something
a big
so
fan
simple.
of painting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. What should people be looking for in the realtor they choose to represent them?
Communication is a big one. Consistency, like I spoke about, you want to know what you're expecting and what you're going to get from your agent. Obviously, expertise is in there as well. But really just a desire to work hard and to understand that your agent works for you.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Basically what she said, if you're going to hire a realtor, you want to know who they are. You want to set your expectations right from the beginning. You want to feel that they're a right fit for you. And you want to make sure, I think ultimately communication's a big one. What are your expectations here? Do you want your realtor to get back to you right away? Are you okay with a few hours? Are you okay with days? I mean, I don't think days would be appropriate, but it is a big one. So
communication I think is huge, because
because
if they're communicating with you and you're the say the seller or the buyer, that is also maybe an indication of how they're communicating with other people in the process. So say if you're selling someone's property and there's 10 different realtors have brought people for listings, and if you follow up with all those people and say, hey, what's going on? What did they think? And you can get the feedback from them. You then have new information to provide to your seller, or maybe the prompt for them to from a sales perspective, hey, there's this offer that's coming in. Did you want to get one in as well? You can really imagine how that could have a big impact on the outcome. So if someone is communicating well with you, that's probably a better indication that they're communicating well with other people too, which really matters a lot.
Yeah, and there can be a difference in clients, right? Some clients want that, they want to know every moment. And then there's other clients that are like, no. Like, don't reach
This
out
is
to
your
me
job.
until there's like an offer. Like,
Right.
you need to take this on, just as you said. Like, this is your job. So
Yeah, I typically offer clients the option. I do a Google Doc for every buyer or seller or client, and so they have access to that Google Doc. They can see what I'm doing in that Google Doc. It has an inquiry list. Obviously, privacy is protected, so I can't put buyers' names and phone numbers or potential things like that. You know, you have to keep privacy on top of mind. But there are a lot of things that you can include in the Google Doc around the hours that you're spending on the marketing, where you're marketing, who's inquired, you know, your open house schedule. And it's a great way for clients to follow what you're doing and to keep in touch with you and to kind of keep on top of what you're doing without feeling like they're stepping on your toes or getting too involved or not being involved enough. Like, it kind of puts the ball in their court in terms of how much they want to be involved and how much they want to know. And if they have questions, it's very easy to just pop them in the Google Doc, of course, as well as texting, calling, emailing. But I just find that's a great way for buyers and sellers to keep in touch with me and to be as involved with what I'm doing as they want to be.
So, Alicia, why did you choose the Anthony Delodder team at Royal LePage?
did you look at his social media and his vibe? Take a look at it and then you'll know.
Yeah, you guys work really well together.
We kind of have the same energy and a similar vibe. And yeah, no, I'm really happy to be on his team. He's got a lot of energy and he's excited. And like, he's been around for a little while. I think it's been 6 years now that he's been in the industry. But he's still got that drive, that motivation, and he's a really great mentor. So I'm super happy to be on board with him and his team.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. He does like the walkthrough listing videos.
Yeah,
he's an
he's so
on-staff
fun.
video person.
Yeah, that's huge.
Yeah, there is. There's a lot that he does in that. So that's really cool. And I can see your vibe too with that. Like he's kind of, he dresses fancy,
Yeah.
like he's got the
Yeah, they're a
suit
great
and he'll
team.
like looking all sharp. And,
Yeah.
and I could see that matching up really well with you kind of bringing the style,
Yeah,
to
for
it
sure.
and the energy of that. And hopefully with that getting, increasing that kind of, that exposure for potential, buyers or sellers. So.
Yeah, I was more referring to like the blooper sides of things, but,
All right.
but I'll take
okay.
that. I'll take that.
Yeah. No, that's cool.
No, he does do like a really good job. His media is excellent.
Yeah.
I want to say maybe the best in the industry. I don't know, but yeah. So I'm like really happy to be a part of that. But yeah, very, very professional. If you can see on his media, but then a lot of funny stuff too, which
Yeah.
I love the mix. I do.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah, it's important to put your personality out there, but I don't think there's a lot of agents that work harder than Anthony Delodder. Like he's
Yeah.
awesome. In that sense, he's always very visible and very hardworking and very aware of what's happening on the island, which is awesome.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, and he's done a lot of he has a lot of experience doing higher end listings now too. Like
Yeah.
He's come a long way. I've met him before. We talked before. I mean, he's come a long way from I think he had a station at the Down East Mall when he first started, and
You're
he
right.
was just getting going, and then
Yeah.
now he's doing really good stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's awesome. Okay, we're getting down to the end of it here. Oh well, maybe a couple more questions. In this higher interest rate environment, what are the best opportunities for buyers, sellers, renters, or investors?
Dun, dun, dun.
Dun, dun, dun.
So for buyers, I think that it now is a great opportunity compared to the last few years to put those conditions in there and to take a minute, to make sure that this is the best deal for you and that the luxury of that time is coming back that we kind of lost in the pandemic when multiple offers were so crazy. And two, from an investor side of things, like I think creative financing is coming back now. You're seeing more VTBs or vendor takebacks, seller held financing, which from an investing perspective is awesome.
So you're seeing some seller financing.
Yeah,
come to
that's
the table?
coming back.
Oh, nice. I saw one person offering that lately, but that's cool. You've been seeing that. Nice.
Yeah, sellers are a lot more receptive to that conversation, which is amazing for investors.
Yeah, and then they may, like the idea of like, oh, I sell it, and then I can also earn money on the loan from this and benefit from that equity.
It can very much be a win-win. Yeah.
Yeah, and then that can be an opportunity to scale for the investors as well.
Yeah. Renters, tough, because, the price of a rental is directly correlated to the price of financing and homes in general. So tough market for renters. Sellers, we are shifting from that high sellers market that we saw for so long, to, instead of competition amongst buyers, like we're kind of now seeing competition amongst sellers, which is a nice transition. So it's really important now for sellers to price their homes properly, market them properly, and present them properly in a way that, not that it wasn't before, but it's more important now, I think, than it was in recent years.
Yeah, and I feel like there'd be fewer kind of mistakes made in a way from buyers who maybe aren't perfectly informed. Like there was one listing I went, and I won't say where it is or anything or when it was that I looked at it, but I just remember walking in and seeing, okay, they bought this right in the middle of the craziness of it all, and what they paid for it and what they were trying to get for it. And then I was kind of looking at it and I was like, this might be a tough pill to swallow, because I think what the market is going to bear on this particular place is less than what they paid for it, based on kind of things that you wouldn't necessarily notice if you were looking at the listing from a distance, but if you were looking at it close, and if you were taking your time to really understand it. I think, but that being said, prices are up, volumes are down. So in general, it's not like the price of things are collapsing. It's just I think, but there's a little bit less hysteria around buying things, which kind of makes things a little bit more right.
Yeah, I think it's balancing out in a way that it should. I think that higher interest rates are making people stop and think, because it's expensive to borrow money right now, more expensive than it's been in a while. So you have to make sure that the dollar that you're spending is worth spending. And I think banks too got a lot smarter about appraising properties after the pandemic and the multiple offer frenzy, and seeing so many homes go so high over asking. That hopefully there aren't too many properties that were purchased at a price that wasn't reasonable.
Yeah, for what it is.
It does happen.
Yeah, it could happen. Yeah. Okay, why the PEI Pro Realtor brand?
So I started that brand right at the beginning of my career, and I'd like to shout out Mary Jane Webster at RE/MAX, because she was my first broker, and right off the bat, she kind of was like, brand yourself. So she's like, we have a RE/MAX email, but don't use it, in case we break up or whatever. And that was the best advice that I've gotten. I chose to build my business on the pillars of honesty, integrity, and professionalism. Like you picked up that the Pro in PEI Pro Realtor is for professionalism, and that's what I want to offer. I want to be an agent that you can expect, that's going to communicate with you in a respectful manner, timely manner, that's going to be informed about the market and your property and ways to successfully market your property, or on the buying side of things, somebody that's going to be on top of recent sales and the market climate, and how you can, as a buyer, purchase the right property for you, and making sure that you're staying within your financial means, not necessarily at the top of your pre-approval budget. I want to be a broker owner myself, so that is why I chose to brand outside of my brokerage from the get-go. And so PPI, or PEI Pro Realtor, is the way that I will do that. So from that perspective, it was important for me to build a brand alongside a real estate business, and to do so outside of the brokerage that I was currently working with. I'm also a little type A, and I like having control over the way that I market my listings. Again, because, if it's something that's right next to a golf course, Realtor.ca is amazing, and these big brokerages have a great reach, but it's kind of a one-size-fits-all marketing approach with some of the bigger brokerages and Realtor.ca. So to be able to have my website and to do the Google ads that I want and the social media ads that I want. I think it allows me to offer sellers and buyers a more tailor-made approach to their real estate transaction that's best for them. I'm also a huge numbers person, so I like to go off of the market stats and things like that, and kind of do my own thing. And PEI Pro Realtor has been a great way for me to do that in a recognizable way.
Yeah. You provide them market updates. I've noticed on your social media.
Yeah, I've been doing that for a couple of years now, and I do that for consistency purposes, And I also firmly believe that knowledge is power, and of course, it's my job or the realtor's job to have that knowledge. But I think that buyers and sellers are empowered to make better decisions for them if they they're not just getting thrown the market stats right in the middle of their transaction. Like if they've had kind of a soft exposure to this in a way that's a little bit easier to understand, and without getting into the nitty gritty of it and like that big 12-page document that we get as realtors that we have to then pick through and discuss the market stats. Like I really try and present them in a way that's friendly and in layman's terms. So
then people can follow you on your Instagram, and then and on your other social media, they can start to get acquainted with what's happening in the market. So then when they go in and start to participate in the market, they're a little bit more informed.
Yeah, like so for example, days on market, last year we saw days on market sit around 26 to 29 for most of the year, and like we've slowly seen it go up 47, and then it was 82 at one point. Now we're back down to 62, 52. So when sellers know what to expect when their listing is on the market, it's an easier conversation as a real estate agent to say, like, it's going to sit for a little bit. Sure, you can price it aggressively, or there are things that you can do, but the reality is these homes are sitting, and the number of...
And that is the average as well. So some are going to be longer than that to account for ones that are shorter.
Yeah, so. Especially like the higher prices, 475 and above really got hit harder with these interest rate increases because it's more expensive to borrow more money. And like the number of new listings a month compared to the number of sales now, like big difference. Last month there was 226 new listings and 132 sales.
Right.
So obviously that's not a direct, these listings are listings that are selling now, have listed a couple of months ago, but it is kind of interesting to see that it's not everything that's selling. So it's more important now to price it properly and market it properly and present it properly, clean your house, make sure the pictures look really good, clean your blinds. And sellers are more receptive to this advice when they see themselves why it's being given to them,
Cool.
Yeah.
That's great. So anything else either of you want to talk about before we wrap up?
I think you got her all, David.
We got
all
of the information. All of the real estate information is in this episode.
Yeah,
so we can enjoy that. No, that's great. What's the best way for people to get a hold of you? Maybe we can...
Yeah. I mean, you can call me on my cell phone. No, yeah. You can text, call, email, any which way. Yeah. 902-393-8447.
You can find me, as David mentioned, at PEI Pro Realtor on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. You can email me, Cecilia at PEIProRealtor.com, but definitely follow my Instagram. That is where I'm most active and where I try and put out the most value add content. I mean, everything that I put out, I try and add value to, but especially Instagram. Would love to have you follow along.
Great. We'll put links and that information in the description. So if you're watching the video, you can just go to the info and it'll be right there for you. Or if you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or wherever, it should be in the show notes. So yeah, great. Awesome. Thank you both for coming on.
Thank you so much
David.
for having us.
Yeah,
this was
pleasure.
so fun.
Awesome. You got it.